Okay, we got that. One last thing. This. That. Oh. Okay, so let's double check we got everybody I need. There's Mr. Baker. There's Mr. Baker. There's Mr. Galley. Yeah, Mr. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's all of us. All right. All right, I got 7:31 on the clock. Welcome everybody to the September 12th meeting, September 12th, 2023 meeting of the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals. All members are participating remotely. That would be Greg Tanzi, myself, Rob Rosa. That would be Mr. Bob Baker Sr., Mr. Bob Baker Jr., and Mr. Stephen Gallup. So after that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Oh, I got a one. I'm going to give that. I'm going to give that to Mr. Baker Sr. I'm going to give the second to Mr. Tanzi. Roll call. Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
Yourself is a yes. Mr. Baker Sr.
Yes.
Mr. Baker Jr.
Yes.
And the ever so good looking Mr. Stephen Galley. What's going on, sir?
Oh, good, thank you. You make me blush. Yes.
Well, you're in a yes too. I just you've got the best kept hair here. So it's like, you know, I have to make mention of that.
I blushed you before the meeting.
There it is. All right, let me read the legal ad. Notice is hereby given that a virtual continuance public hearing for deliberation purposes only will be held at 7:30 p.m. on September 12th, 2023, remotely via Zoom on the petition filed under Chapter 40B comprehensive permit by Shingle Mill LLC, care of Conoco, 41st Street, Bridgewater, Mass. 02324, to allow the construction of 236 units of residential housing. The site, the project within 2 5-story buildings on approximately 29.33 acres of land located at 0 Pond Street and 152 Wilson Street, the site. The applicant is proposing 25% of the units to be classified as affordable per Mass General Law, Chapter 40B. The site is located at 0 Pond Street, Lot 13, Map 9, and 153 Wilson Street, Lot 68, Map 10. A copy of this application is on file with the town clerk's office and is available for inspection during regular office hours. Okay. So we left off with going over the waivers list, wasn't it? Greg, were you happy that we got through all your conditions? Were you happy?
Oh yeah. I was very happy.
All right, as long as you were satisfied that we got through every single one of your conditions as you know, as you were written, or as you wrote it. If that's good. I know we started going off. I know we started working with the conditions list. So I'm assuming we should start there. Yes, maybe. Anybody? Bueller? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that all? Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought, did Pat submit any conditions? I thought he was going to submit some conditions.
Not that I know of. Deb, do you know any of that?
I just emailed them like 2 minutes ago.
Okay.
Okay.
So again, we are still waiting for him to come back from a meeting in a different town. So, oh, wait a second. Yeah, you did just, okay. All right, he just did these. Perfect. All right, so does everybody have those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
Not yet?
No, I can't pull them up.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I see them here. I see that. Let me just double check. I want to go through the email list. Mr. Galvin, Mr. Baker, Mr. Tanzi, myself, Mr. Baker Jr., and Mr. Galley, you guys were all tagged into the email. So I'm assuming that Mr. Baker Sr., I'm assuming they're in there someplace.
Yeah, they're probably in my inbox.
All right. As long as I just want to make sure that you've got them.
Yeah,
Because
come up and they're in there.
Okay, as long as they're in there, you can go on, you can go over them at your leisure, but I'll gladly read them so we can, take care of this. So again, it was we can either go here or we can go with the waivers list that they wanted to, that they submitted. So
We want-
it's up,
We
it's up.
want to do the waiver list and see if Pat comes in.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Deb, do you have that waivers list? Can you wing it to me? I mean, I can find it, but I mean, if you can wing it to me, that would be easier.
It's in, do you have the conditions that I sent out earlier, the draft ones?
Absolutely, I do.
At the end of it.
That's even better. They can go all the way to the end. Okay. Wow, there's a lot of pages here. There we go. Okay. So everybody ready? I'm gonna start reading this stuff. Yes? There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Waiver number 1, section 407-5, chapter 407, Wetlands Protection Bylaw. The bylaw requires a 25-foot vegetated no disturbance zone from the upland limits of the wetland resource. I'm not gonna read every word. We know what they're looking for. The existing 25-foot no disturbance zone on the site is significantly disturbed. Access to the site from South Street must pass through the 25-foot no disturbance zone. The sewer extension also passes within 25 feet of the wetland. Other impacts to the 25-foot no disturbance zone have been avoided and minimized by using walls under rather than 2.1, 2-to-1 slopes and designing the site to avoid and minimize impacts as much as possible. Okay, so basically, if you all remember, they're all over the board when it comes to these buffers. Now, again, when it comes right down to it, the major disturbance to the 25-foot buffer that I saw, that I looked at, that I think we all looked at, is the main driveway going in. Does that sound right to everybody?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, now, Attorney Galvin, you had said this, that we can say that they have to adhere to the local bylaw. But we can say what portions of the site. I'm trying to understand how this all works, because I'm getting two different answers on this. Either
Well, I don't know who's giving you any other answers, but the reality is you're functionally the Conservation Commission under the local bylaw.
okay,
So you
can
you can waive the 25-foot buffer requirement, the no-touch area.
Yep.
You can uphold the 25-foot buffer, or you could waive it in part and deny it in part.
okay.
So those are your three options.
And so those are the three options. If we waive it in, I'm just as an example, if we were to waive it in part, meaning the entryway going in, if we were to waive it in that situation and say that they had to adhere to it for the remainder of the site, in a situation like that, typically there's mitigation that has to happen. Who determines that?
Pat Brennan would give you recommended conditions for the mitigation.
Okay. That's not how it. Okay. All right. I kept looking for direction on this, and it's been stated that the zoning board only determines if they have to adhere to it or not. We don't. It was stated that we don't determine how to administer it.
Yes, you do.
Okay, so this turns into a bigger thing now, because typically with a lot of, and I think you know this, typically with a lot of wetlands filings, there's remediation areas, there's replication areas, There's all kinds of stuff that tends to happen with conservation when it comes to what they're dealing with and what they're doing to the buffer.
That's
So-
exactly what, Pat evaluated
Mhm.
on your behalf as consultant to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay,
Just so you know, when this process is done, were there to be any type of an approval, the applicant will then resume their hearing with the Conservation Commission under the State Wetlands Protection Act and regulations.
that's kind of what I figured, but that's neither here nor there at this point. Did anybody since we just got Pat's stuff, I'd like to look at Pat's stuff to see if he's got anything under the local wetlands bylaw. Easement applicant shall from the sewer commission says the adequate water supply in accordance with that should be no sewer instead, so nope. So he doesn't have any, we're gonna have to talk to him specifically when it comes to that. Because everything, based on what I see 8 conditions that he threw down, and one is the fill, schedule site deliveries, no sewer installation, again, sewer commission. Adequate documentation showing that there's adequate water supply and for fire protection, showing that there's adequate potable water. Copies of easements secured by applicant to construct the project shall be submitted. And in the event that available on-site snow storage is exhausted, the owner shall have the site, that shall have the snow removed. So he's got nothing in there for wetlands. So unfortunately, I think we got to wait until he gets there to talk about that. Does everybody kind of agree on that one?
That's fair.
All right, let me get back to Deb's draft conditions here. All the way down the bottom. All right, so we'll wait on that one. Number 2, for section 415-19, chapter 415, zoning bylaw 415-19, H 415-19, H1 industrial park. Hotel zone, okay. The proposed project use is residential apartment buildings, which is not included in the permitted principal uses for the industrial park hotel district. The only way this is going to work is we get the variance on.
You'd have to give them a variance from this provision, or else no 40B would ever be allowed, because usually they're at a density that's not permitted in any of our districts.
Don't all speak at once, gentlemen.
Yeah, we have to give them that waiver. So
It's the only way that this would be built, that it could be.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if we denied the waiver, they'd just get it overturned at a snap of the fingers. So we have to waive that. All right, is that how you see it, Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
So, all right, I'll make a motion to waive it.
Well, what I would suggest you do is that you give them a waiver as per the last revised plan set, because you're not waiving it for anything. You're waiving it only as per their final plan set.
Yep.
So their last set of plans, I believe, were submitted on July 20th, 2023. And they're dated April 14th, 2023, last revised July 14th, 2023.
concur with that, Deb?
Yep, I'll verify it.
Non-voting members, how do you feel on that?
Reasonable to me.
Okay,
As to me also, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, sir. Voting members,
Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
okay,
Yes,
Mr.
I
Baker.
agree.
that?
I agree.
All right, so I've got a motion, I got a second, gonna be roll call. Mr. Tanzi,
Yes,
himself is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes,
Okay, there we go. Number 3, section 415-19, chapter 415 zoning bylaw, 415 hotel zone, H1 industrial park, district C uses requiring special permit. The proposed project use is residential apartment buildings which is not included in use requiring special permits for the industrial park hotel district. So this is just going with this is their way, they're looking for a waiver or variance to the H1. Is that how I'm reading this?
it almost sounds a little bit redundant, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
that's what well, you're dealing with the industrial, but you're also dealing with, I guess, the H1.
right.
It looks like there's a different section of the zoning bylaw, and what they did is they looked at the section that leads to principal permitted uses,
Yep.
then uses by special permit, and they're looking for a waiver of both because it's not authorized under either one.
Either
So
one.
the waiver you'd be contemplating is the same one you granted just a moment ago, allowing it per plan.
Okay, so is that, and again, does that constitute a waiver or a variance?
Well, you're not granting variances here tonight. You're granting waivers.
Waivers, all right.
I'll make a motion to grant that waiver.
Yeah, the motion would be to grant the waiver as per the last revised plan set. And I believe it was revised July 14th, 2023.
Okay. And I'm pulling up the zoning map just to get kind of just to make sure we're looking at the right thing.
Well, yeah, I think that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the it's the H1 zone.
Yeah, it's July 14th. Is the
Okay.
last revision date that I see here.
All right, so I got Mr. Baker making a motion. I've got
Yes,
Greg, are you seconding that?
Yeah, I second it.
All right, roll call, Mr. Tanzi,
Yes.
self is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior,
yes,
we all. Leave that up. Just in case. So we got number 3, going to number 4, 415-22. Chapter 415 zoning bylaw, 415-22 table, maximum height. The proposed apartment building will be 5 stories tall and approximately 69 feet above finished grade. This is 2 stories and 33 feet taller than the maximum building height for the district. 3 stories to 5 stories equals 2. I'm glad he knows how to subtract. So this is a big one.
You and the building inspector some time ago measured the height
Mhm.
of a 5-story hotel.
Yep.
And you came up with a height on that. I don't recall what the footage was.
Mhm.
I don't know if you have that in your records somewhere. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't expect you to pull it up now, but I mean,
No, I'm gonna tell you I don't, and I'm gonna tell you that it was under the 69 feet. And we included the, what do they call it, parapet wall? Is that what that is? That what that is? That's-
Yeah, above the roof.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we included that. And that was still somewhere in the neighborhood of like 55, 57 feet.
Yeah,
Once you include it's like the extra roof that goes over the stairwell.
yeah,
When you incorporate there was some mechanicals up there,
hmm,
it was getting up there. It was definitely over 60 feet. You know, was it 62, 63, 64? That I would have to find. That I would have to find, but it definitely was not 69.
yeah.
The
Well,
other thing on this too is, I don't think they're putting the mechanicals on the roof. I don't think they took that into consideration on the height.
and the other thing,
This thing could be 75, 80 feet tall.
Right.
well, the thing of it is, that height, that 69 feet is on top of approximately 10 feet of fill. So
Right.
the elevation difference from existing grade to top of roof is closer to 80 feet,
Right.
79, 80 feet.
Right.
Whereas the hotels did not do that. They didn't have to do that with their site. I mean,
Well,
they might have brought in some fill, but it's relatively flat. I mean, the grade next to the, to Hingham Street is, is approximately the same. It might not be exactly the same, but it's not, there's no 10-foot fill differential.
Can I make a suggestion on this one?
Sure.
And I tend to doubt that we're going to be able to make a decision tonight anyway, because I know there's still a ton that we have to go over. I would like to go back along with Mr. Rubel. I would like to go back to that hotel. I'd like to double check that measurement. I'd like to incorporate every single thing that's sticking up out of that and see what that number is. And then I have the ability to calculate elevations. So I can calculate the elevations of that hotel. Not that it's really going to matter. It's in the grand scheme of things, the elevation's the elevation. It's different. It's going to end up being different, but it's also not too far away from where we're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's right. It's the one that's on Hingham Street. I don't remember the name of it, but that's what I would recommend, just so we have an actual number. Unless I can find it in some of the notes that I took, which it would probably be easier to go remeasure.
Yeah, and then you get a double check out of it too.
Basically.
And it's fresh in your mind rather than relying from 4 years ago.
Non-voting members, does that sound reasonable to you guys?
Does, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Mr. Baker Senior?
Yes,
Okay, all right, let's just pass over that for right now. So that was number 4. Number 5. So again, keeping track, we have to go back over number 1 and number 5, number 1 and number 4. Number 5, 415-22, chapter 415, zoning bylaw, 415-22, building and lot regulations, parking access and egress requirements, all proposed non-accessible designated parking spaces are 9 by 18. Parking spaces required by this bylaw shall be a minimum of 10 feet in width by 20 feet in length for full-sized vehicles and 9 feet by 18 in length for compact vehicles. Plus, there's a percentage. I think it's 70%.
Yeah, 70% compact and 30 full size.
Okay. So I'm gonna go right back on record as saying that 9 by 18 is too small. 9x18 is too small.
Yeah,
I mean, it's, again, I drive a giant van. Okay, that's my decision. And at first lock on both doors, it's 10 feet. That's my van. Now, again, smaller passenger cars at full lock, it's going to end up being probably 9.5 feet, maybe 9 feet, something like that. But on open lock, full lock, it's going to end up being over 10 feet. So it's just my feeling is that 9x18 just does not work. But if we force them to go to 10x20, even if it's 70%, it's going to screw their parking car, their parking counter. And at best, we got them at what was it, 2? It was 2.0 at the end, wasn't it? Or was it 1.7?
Yeah, 2.0.
All right, we got them at 2.0
You-
at the end of it, at the last thing that they were gonna require. So, or that they were gonna try, they were gonna try for. So if we change it now, it's gonna destroy their parking.
If we change, what do you mean by if we change it now? Change the
Well,
parking size?
If we make them adhere to the 10x20s, even if it's the 70-30 split. If we change anything on the parking at this point, it's not gonna work.
So 30% would have to be full-size spaces, right, by our bylaw.
It's not gonna work.
No, but the thing of it is, I mean, you drive a van, I drive a pickup. So
Mhm.
many people have SUVs.
Mhm.
I mean, these are very, common staple vehicles that people have, or if you have a Cadillac or a full-size car, I mean, they're not as popular as they were back in the day, but these SUVs and just pickup trucks.
Mhm.
So,
they're getting bigger and bigger.
huh?
As they build them, they're getting bigger and bigger, the SUVs.
Right.
Yeah.
They're getting wider.
I don't know how to deal with it. Again, as someone who has driven
Would you like some help?
yes,
Sure.
please talk to us, please.
Okay. So look at it. It's customary for an applicant to ask for a waiver of the total amount of parking spaces
Mhm.
as well as the amount of full-size spaces. Okay. And in many communities, it's kind of accepted that you only need 1.5 parking spaces per unit. Okay. When you space it over the single bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, it kind of works out. Okay. Now I've heard our board talking about 2 spaces per unit. And I think the way you get the 2 spaces per unit based on what you've got here is by having those 9x18 parking spaces. So, if you don't have enough parking, you're going to create problems for your neighbors over there. So you don't want to do that either. And I think my memory was they were proposing to build a certain amount of parking spaces and then have a reserve area where they would build more if it was required. And it's up to the board to decide whether it's going to even accept that concept.
Mhm.
But, I've seen projects permitted with all 9x18 spaces. And I've seen projects done with a mixture of 9x18 and 10x20 spaces.
Mhm.
But my guess is, and I hate to keep on saying this, but, if you have the 10x20 foot spaces, some of the plans and the drive aisles were based on the 18, and it may screw up your drive aisles. So if they're all contemplated as 9x18, maybe you tell them that you want a certain percentage of their spaces to be 10x20s.
I'm just trying to find that. I'm trying to find that in the bylaw specific. I want to see the actual the full wording.
I got a question about parking.
Please talk to me.
Well, like on Union Street, there's a section that says, no trucks can park here. And these spots, over by Monero's and the laundromat and such.
Mhm.
And they'll say, no trucks can park there, but trucks will park there and they'll stick out into the road.
Mhm.
Even if the parking spots were narrow, could we require them to be 20 feet long? Like, instead of, 9 by 20, instead of 9 by 18?
Problem there is that it's gonna screw up the drive lane.
Yeah.
Well, it depends upon what the percentage. What they'd have to do is have all, the full-size parking spaces clustered into one unit with its associated aisle, and then go off into another section of the parking lot that would be of the economy size. I mean, you'd have to segregate them in order to make that work. You'd use that with your islands and your landscaping and whatnot.
Thank you.
Bob, if I may, to Bob. If I may to Bob. If we kept these parking spaces the way they want them, the 9 by 18, could we impose a restriction that only compact vehicles can park in those spaces? And it would be up to the management to police that?
I mean, you could ask them to put signage that way, but the problem is you can still fit a bigger vehicle in a 9 by 18 space. And if it's available, they're going to take it.
Mhm.
It's not optimum, and you're obviously a lot closer. A lot of supermarkets now, have 9 by 18 spaces, and they do it so that they don't take up as much space. So, I mean, the answer is yes, you can do it, but I'm not sure you should.
So basically it comes down to if we force them to do anything else other than what they've proposed, it's going to end up screwing up their parking count. It's going to end up screwing up everything to do with their layout. Is it something that I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm never going to go there. I'm never going to park in their parking spaces. It's the people that live there that are going to be forced to deal with it. So,
You're right there.
Ryan, it's I'd like to think that we're looking out for the people that are going to live there, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's any way around it. I don't think there's any way around not granting this waiver. Or no, I don't think there's any way around it,
No,
granting it, giving it to me. Allowing all the spaces to be 9 by 18, like what, I don't think there's any way around it. So, and again.
And what is Mr. Chairman, what is the total number of spaces that we discussed last week?
398.
There we go.
Thank you.
no. I thought it was 298.
No, that's what they want. They need 390. They wanted 299, but it's the complex requires 398.
Yeah, with the two parking spot per unit, yes.
What's the, yeah. So if it's 398 spaces at 9 by 18, just check my math. Is 2 spaces per unit. That's the most parking we can get out of it. Yes?
Yeah, yes. Oh, what if we say, 3%, they have to be full size.
It's not gonna work.
Well, if they're clustered in an area by themselves with their own access aisle, rather than integrating them in with the other spaces, you can't integrate them with the other spaces. That won't work. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. There'd have to be a cluster of parking with their own access aisle and their own space lengths.
Mhm. No, I agree with you there, but I'm still gonna say it's not gonna work. Because what you're doing is from curb, from end of parking space all the way through to another end of parking space, you're increasing that distance by 4 feet. Now, they're all in their own line. Then you're only increasing that distance by 2 feet. But it doesn't matter because everything that they've done, everything that they've designed is based on the 9x18. They've got the 23 feet, backup, the 23 feet backup, required backup distance. They're at minimums all the way through. Any change whatsoever is going to force a redesign. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it. I think I'm just gonna quickly reference. Is this the latest plan?
Hey, Joe, wait, real quick, Greg. Hey, Pat, watch
Yeah.
out, Pelican behind you. Welcome and thank you. We got your conditions. We're gonna go over them after the waivers that we're dealing with. And actually, since you're here, you might even be able to find this. I'm trying to find the part of the zoning bylaw where it talks about the percentage when it comes to 10x20 versus 9x18, the compact spaces. And I can't seem to find that.
I'll find it, but what the bylaw says is that up to 30% can be 9x18.
So it's the other way around, brother.
Yep.
We were looking at it the other way, that the 30% could be the 10x20. So it's reversed of what we were thinking.
So our bylaw says 70% have to be the larger spaces.
Yeah.
And your understanding, Mr. Chairman, is unless it's 100% compact, their parking plan doesn't work.
I have not analyzed that. I did not bring it up in any software. I did not.
No, I'm not looking for anything, but that's your understanding of.
The way that I'm looking at it, sir, yes, because, and again, I'll just do it one more time. They are at minimums, 100% minimums all the way through. 9x18 on the spaces, 23 feet backup width between aisles. If you change anything, even by half a foot, that's going to cause an entire redesign of all paved surfaces. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because our bylaw calls for the 70-30, 30% can be, compact. But on the flip side, I know what it's like to drive a bigger vehicle. I know what it's like to drive a smaller vehicle that's a 2-door that has big doors. Old school Buick Rivieras, their doors were like 6 feet long. So it's still that same way. Everybody's not everybody's driving a sedan with doors that are only 4 feet wide, and they only open up like 2 feet tops. It's not how it works anymore. So
Can I make a comment?
please do.
Well, I'm thinking, I'm not a voting member, as I always say when I'm not a voting member, but I think at this point, I think we should decide what we believe we should approve or just, or deny on the size of the parking spots. And then it'll be on the applicant to either meet that requirement or reduce the number of units so they can have enough parking spots that meet the size requirement. Or if they get to appeal it and they get it overturned, then we've done what we could.
So 100%, Mr. Galley, that's 100% agreed. I agree with you absolutely 100%. Now I'm gonna go to Attorney Galvin. Bob, is something that they can get overturned? Have you seen that happen? Do I have my earplugs on? I can't hear them.
He's muted.
Anything can get turned over, it just depends on the judge.
I think he's swearing at me under his breath.
He's side swearing at you.
Attorney Galvin, did you hear it? Did you hear us? We can't hear you. You're muted.
Might have froze up.
No, he's still working. He's still moving.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine. My question to you, I don't know if you heard my question, but based on the parking, if we changed anything about the parking and it forced them to go into a design mode or decrease the number of units or something like that, is that something that you've seen get overturned?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know. I don't know how to handle it. If we don't do it, if we don't grant this, I know what's going to happen. And I'm looking at it from both sides of the coin here. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I think it's the wrong maneuver because of the size of the, because
I think maybe could I maybe just to make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
I mean, Pat, what do you think about all the spaces being 9 by 18? Do you think some of them, as a practical matter, ought to be the larger spaces? And do you think they could fit it in when still have enough parking?
I'm not sure that they'll be able to fit it all in. I mean, they may be able to fit a few spaces here and there, but they'd never meet the regulation. And Mr. Chairman, the regulation is in 415-22A1, and it reads, all parking spaces as required by this bylaw shall be a minimum of 10 feet in width by 20 feet in length for full-size vehicles and 9 feet in width by 18 feet in length for compact vehicles. The ratio shall be 30% compact vehicles to 70% full-size vehicle space.
There you go. Pat, what do you drive?
Pickup.
All right. I'm not picking on people that are driving giant vehicles. I'm not trying to talk to everybody that drives a giant vehicle. I'm just saying that I believe that 9 feet wide is not, it quite honestly should be taken out of the bylaw. We shouldn't allow it at all, ever, but it's in there, so we have to talk about it. And if we change anything, and I appreciate what Pat said. I will differ from that a little bit by saying that if we change anything, if they have to change anything, it's going to cause, is it a major redesign? I can't say it's a major redesign, but it's definitely going to be a substantial redesign of all paved surfaces, any and all paved surfaces, because they're down to minimums. Like I said, they're down to minimums. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
I'm looking at the parking layout plan, and they have 10 spaces proposed in front of the amenities area, that landscaped area where the community building was formally proposed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those 10 spaces, there's enough room where you could, bump them out, make them, a foot longer, and then you can widen them. There's room on either side where they can be widened.
Okay, so you're saying that there is room that it could work a little bit?
Well, for at least for 10 spaces, it could work. Yeah. I mean, 10 is better than nothing, is my.
No, I agree with you. But here's the recommendation that maybe we, instead of requiring the full 30%, Maybe we require 25%. Maybe we require 20%, a smaller percentage, and let them figure it out.
We can do that. But you know, we don't want something that could get overturned either. But I was thinking the same thing that you were thinking, and I was struggling with, what would that percentage be? Would it be 10? Would it be 5? Would it be
We'll go with-
25?
What, Greg, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what, what was the number of the parking spaces? What was the overall number, the 2.0 number? What was that? What's that?
Yeah, that was 398.
398 times 0.25. 99. So basically, yeah, 100 parking spaces. If we required, this is the way that I'm looking at it. If we required 25% full-size spaces, that's 100. That's 100 spaces. It's going to change a little bit. It may be less than that, but it's close to 100 full-size spaces. Everything else be flood. Everything else be reduced. The 9 by 18. So if we said so of the 398 times 0.25, that's 99.5. So they would have to either round up or round down because it's a 0.5. So, I think the 25% works. So if we were to require 25% full-size spaces and everything else to be half, it's not the bylaw, but it's getting some of the spaces a little bit bigger. And depending on how they do the layout, you may not be parking near your lot, or you may not be parking near your building if you drive a giant van or a giant pickup or a Escalade or a Expedition or anything like that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I direct a
Yes.
question? May I direct a question to Attorney Galvin?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, Bob, if the board were to grant the waiver in part, as Rob suggested, to 100 spaces, 100 regular spaces and the rest compact spaces, since that is not granting the waiver as requested by the applicant, would we need to provide a rationale for the number that we came up with?
Well, I mean, my guess is that they would, in their final plan set, attempt to reconfigure their parking spaces, and they would result in, there would be a resulting loss of 300. You wouldn't have 398 parking spaces. My guess is that they can probably redesign it some way, shape, or form to accommodate it. If it results in this project becoming uneconomic, they'll appeal it.
Right.
And they'll
And if
claim
they-
that we've made this project less desirable, and the Housing Appeals Committee will deal with the issue.
And if they were to appeal it, could they allege that the number was arrived at arbitrarily?
Yeah, well, that's why I was trying to figure out, I mean, look, it's a de novo appeal. So they'll probably allege that it was arbitrary. But what you're trying to do is trying to figure out how many spaces that you really need in a site like this. And remember, it's not single family homes. And you probably have, it's fair to say you probably have less families. That doesn't mean you have necessarily have less SUVs or Suburbans, but it's probably more likely than not, you're not going to have the same amount of big vehicles. But the reality is, I think if you come up with a number that you believe is a fair approximation of what you would need across a site like this with the proposed, residents as they appear to be, then that's what you do.
Well, I thought based on last week's discussion that the board had already decided that 398 was going to be the number of spaces. Now we're talking about size. Are you suggesting that now the number needs to be revisited to accommodate the size question?
It's really up to you all to decide.
Here we
I think I might, it's up to you all to decide this, but the consideration might be, I'd rather have a few less spaces if enough of them were full size.
Well, my question is, are we gonna sit here all night and try to redesign this place
Nope.
for them? Or are we gonna just say, look, we want this and figure out how to do it? Or
I like
appeal it?
that answer. I like that approach. It's just a matter of how to word it. That I think is what we need, because we're denying their waiver request. But we're
Right.
coming, come up with something that,
May
something.
work, may not.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, from a wording standpoint, I don't know how to do it.
Okay, got a question or a comment?
So talk to me.
So it sounds like we want to deny that waiver request, but can we just then reword it into a condition? And so we're saying we're denying this request for these amount of parking spots at this size. Our condition is you have this many, this ratio of parking spots, and whether it's the same condition or another one, they have to be this size. That's on this topic specifically, but like Mr. Baker's senior was saying, we're kind of beating a dead horse, just going over and over and over on it.
Mhm.
Is it a factor in our decision when we worry about an appeal and we lose? Like, are we like considering to ourselves the idea that we're gonna have them go to appeal it, and we have to consider like a cost to that when we're making this decision? Because I feel like, I don't know if that's a factor, but I hope it's not, because we just don't want to lose. Because if we give them what they want, then they get what they want. And if we give them something less than what they want, but something that we feel comfortable and good about for the residents, then, and if they accept that, then good. But then if they appeal and they get what they want in the first place, they're gonna get what they want in the first place. So I just want to know why we can't, as you say, decide what we want, and just so decide, okay, agree, this is what we want, and now say, all right, how do we word it? If we can just agree what we want, then we can figure out how to word it. That's the end of my comment.
No, I think we're in the
Well-
same place.
Well, the other thing is, down at number 10, it's asking for 1.5 parking ratio. And that's considering the 9 by 18s.
Okay, so again, following along with Mr. Galley, if number 10, and where were we? Number
Number 5.
5. So if number 5 and number 10, if we were to deny those waivers, can we then reword them in a condition to say how many parking spaces that we want, ratio, or however it is? Attorney Galvin, over to you. Want me to repeat that, or?
Yeah, please repeat it.
5 and 10 both pertain to the parking spaces.
Yeah.
The parking count, as well as the parking count, as well as the parking space size. If we were
Yep.
to deny both of those waiver requests, can we then, under a condition when it comes to parking, condition it to have X amount of parking spaces and X?
If you deny those waivers, there will most certainly be an appeal.
So Mr.
When you
Gallagher,
say-
back to, hold on, Greg. Mr. Gallagher, getting back to what you were saying about taking into consideration if they are going to appeal,
Yeah,
You hear me now?
dealing with fact.
All right, thank you.
That's
Um,
what it comes down to.
I want to
gotta remember-
apologize to the members and then also Mr. Flowers, Mr.
I'm not-
Galvin,
what I'm saying is,
the
I
witnesses.
understand they'll appeal, but when does that become a criteria for our decision? When we expect an applicant to appeal? Like, how does that fit into our decision-making process? We pretty much anticipate an appeal to something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, are we trying to craft something that has no appeal? Because during the last meeting, I was instructed or informed that a single appeal to a single condition or a waiver rejection does not cascade into a domino effect of other things being overturned. So how are appeals factored into our decision-making?
So, can someone let
Larry,
Jennifer
I would know.
move to this one?
Good question.
Yes,
Bob,
can
can
you hear
you
me?
answer that?
Yes, I can hear you now. I didn't hear you on the other one.
Yeah, so sorry. What I would tell you is, I think it does have to enter your mind. Are you coming up with a decision that's, based on the facts that you have in front of you? And I think as a practical matter, you're trying to come up with a decision that, will be sustained. I mean, that's what we do. We try to write decisions that, are sustained. I would tell you that your condition should not be to redesign the project, meaning shouldn't tell them how to work it out. I think if you feel that having less spaces is okay, then you grant it. If you don't, then you don't. And, there are people
We had
on
a
the chat thing saying they're going to be appeals no matter what. I think you should disregard all the noise, and you should decide what you think is in the best interest of the town of Rockland and the best interest of the abutters. And I think you should decide what's in the, what's likely to be sustained. I think those are all factors that you need to consider.
We had a fair amount of discussion about the minimum parking spaces. And we came up, the voting members came up with 2 spaces per unit, which I think is reasonable.
Mhm.
But now, since they are in one of their waivers seeking 1.5, could that lead to an appeal? Certainly. And I'd say if that leads to an appeal, based on the nature of the conversation or discussion and debate we had about the 2.0, then so be it.
Okay.
Agree. I mean, we're basing our 2.0 space
We'll adjourn and executive.
on
It
2
looks to
other
me,
projects.
That's correct.
I hear static in the background from, I don't know what that is, but, we based our 2.0 on projects of very almost identical to this one, whereas the applicant based the 1.5 on the basis of skirting around that MIPA requirement. The applicant claimed that there are other projects that have 1.5 space per unit, but he never submitted that. So, I mean, I couldn't check it. I couldn't verify it. He never stamped it. He never put it on Conoco letterhead. He didn't give us anything. So, I mean, what the board did is it looked at other identical projects, and they had a 2.0 count, and we're giving them a waiver from our bylaw from 3.0 down to 2. And that's a very, very generous waiver, and it's based on historical evidence of what has proven to work for projects of these magnitudes. And, if they overturn that rationale, then there's nothing we can do about it.
And as you may recall, Greg, when the applicant was asked how they arrived at that number by using their other projects, they could not provide a formula. They could not provide any numbers from those other projects indicating how they arrived at the number for this one. And they essentially, as I mentioned last week, used a process that had all variables and no control.
Right. I mean, I thought that was a very, very weak argument that the applicant presented with his 1.5 ratio. And in light of that 1.5 ratio, just falling 1 space under the MIPA threshold is highly suspect. I mean, it just is. I mean, and if you look in context with the other submittals before that, all the other submittals, same unit count, they're all above 3 parking spaces. And I mentioned to him about, that space count. And if they had all their permits, and they sheepishly said yes, and then they took forever to resubmit. And when they finally resubmitted the first page I turned to was the zoning table, and I saw that it was 299, and I suspected that what was gonna happen. And these delays were there to help hopefully cause us to forget,
Mhm.
but it didn't work that way. It made it a very difficult process to track this project. I found it very, stressful trying to, keep up with them and asking for information and waiting 4 months and not getting the information that I asked for at the previous meetings. I found that to be very stressful. And, I regret some of the things that transpired in these meetings, but, we gotta hold our ground if we're rightfully justified. We're not being unreasonable to this developer by giving him a 1/3 reduction of a waiver in our bylaw, and it's falls in line with all the other projects of this scope and magnitude. We can't abandon the town. We can't abandon the town. We gotta think of the town. So, I mean, I would prefer to have the 2.0 count and waive the size rather than diminish the 2.0 count and increase the size. Because one space with a large car jammed into it, although it's awkward and it's cumbersome and it's not very, efficient pulling in, pulling out, at least you could have a vehicle in a stall that's parked where, if in case of an emergency, you can pass and repass with the necessary efficiency to achieve whatever needed to be achieved.
All right, Greg, can I butt in on real quick
Yeah.
here?
Yes.
All right, here's I think the brass tacks. Board members, do you agree or disagree that all 9x18 spaces is a good thing?
I disagree that all 9/18 is good. I disagree.
So that's not, I'm trying to get down to the easy answers here. So anybody else, does any board member, does any board member believe that 9x18, 100% is the way that it should go? Does anybody agree with it?
I agree with that. I don't think it's a good thing, but I think it's the best thing that we're forced into. We
Okay.
have to understand, we don't have the ability to enforce our bylaws, and we have to give. And I would rather give on the size and hold the count. That's my
Here's the
opinion.
problem. Here's the problem. Based on the waiver, they only want a 1.5. That's not going to gain us 2.0.
No, it won't. So we can't grant that waiver.
Okay. So I guess I'm making a motion that we grant that number 5, the waiver on number 5, when it comes to the 9x18 spaces. 100% of the spaces be 9x18.
Mhm.
Deny number 10 when it comes to the percentage.
Correct.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Attorney Galvin. Okay, Pat, you hear it's, I know that 1.5 is stereotypical. I hear that 1.5 is, that the opinions are that 1.5 is a stereotypical percentage. I don't care. No. So I got a motion. I made a motion. Do I have a second on that?
Second,
I got a second. Roll call. Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Self is a yes. Mr. Baker Senior?
yes,
Rock and roll. All right. So they're held to the 9x18 spaces, 100% 9x18 spaces that they're requesting. But we're denying the waiver on the 1.5.
when we get down there.
Okay, when we get down. So we got number 5, go to number 6. 415-22 zoning bylaw, the building and lot regulations, a parking access. Okay, the emergency access parking lot is 15.4 feet from Wilson Street. This is 14.6 feet less than the minimum setback of 30 feet from any property line. Emergency access parking lot is 15.4 feet. Just want to pull that up just so I can see what we're talking about here. 415-22 to E. 22. And this is 4. 2. All parking areas, loading areas, and areas within the 2E is an industrial district which abut any resident, all parking areas, loading areas, and areas used for access, egress, or on-site circulation shall be set back a minimum of 30 feet from any property line, and the 30-foot setback shall remain unaltered and in a state of natural vegetation. Greg, do you have the plan where they're talking about this?
I'm flipping to it now. Do you know which plan number it is?
The question is are they talking about the proposed redesign that they were gonna do? Or are they talking about the initial with the 1.5, parking space count?
1.5.
Okay,
Yeah.
so even if we had that plan that had all 3 of them on there, that would be something to look at.
But
Well,
remember,
they
they weren't gonna do that parking lot unless they needed to. If the parking didn't work. Down the road, they would use that area to make more parking.
Mhm.
So it's not really a parking area right now on the plans.
So Rob, what was that waiver again?
The
Looking at the
emergency access / parking lot. So yeah, that's the section over by the Wilson Street.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
and it needs to be 30 feet off the right of way property line. Is that what they're saying?
yep. Yeah,
And they show it actually encroaching on the corner of the the right of way of Cedar and Wilson.
mhm.
The gate that they've got is actually in the right of way.
Yep.
And they want a waiver of how much?
The wording that they're using,
14,
this is a 14.6 foot, it's a 14.6 foot variance.
Okay, so they need 15 feet and they want to be 4/10 off the right of way. Is that what they're saying, basically?
They need 30 feet and they want a 15 foot, so call it just 50 feet.
Okay,
They want 15 feet. So.
yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to pull.
I don't think we can
everybody
deny
see.
that.
Hold on, I'm trying to, if I can pull this plan up, I can at least share my screen so everybody can see it.
Yeah, if you could share the screen, I'm not sure I understand what they're,
No,
let me
yeah.
make sure I understand. I want everybody on the same page,
Oh, yeah.
especially me.
Nice. All right. April 5th, revised, April 26, 2023. All right, so let me just get there.
Yeah, it was 7/14/23 was the last revised plan set. July 14th.
All right, so that's not these ones. All right, hold. Revised, I got 426. All right, let me just go ahead and it's downloading again. Hold on. So let's try this one more time. Oh, there we go. Trying to get there without it locking up on me, yeah. Okay. It's the problem with these things. All right, where's my share the screen? Share the screen. Oh, share the screen. Share the screen. All right, can everybody see this over here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
All right, Greg, I know there's a lot of balloons and stuff because it's a PDF, but
yeah,
is this what you're looking at?
I am. Yeah, I think it's this gate. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's right at the corner of Wilson.
Yeah, I can't see your cursor, but am I,
Okay.
my cursor?
Yeah, that's it. That's right there, right at the corner of right at the corner of Wilson and Cedar, right there.
Okay,
So they want to, they say they want a 15-foot waiver off that right of way, and they show it actually encroaching in the right of way, as I understand.
right. And then the other thing they got, you're looking at this parking right here that goes,
Yeah.
or that goes over into this piece right here. So
Yeah.
here's the thing. We still keep talking about the private right of way and, you know, do they have the right to build in it and this, that, the other. Well, again, when it comes down to the private right of way, in that general area, because it's not a public access road, it's technically, it's technically an easement for everybody that's shown on the same plan that created that lot over there. All right, that it created 152 Wilson. But the question is that did that lot that they're the larger lot off of Pond Street, was that also created on that same plan? It becomes a legal issue, a major legal issue. And I'm not going to talk about it. And I wouldn't ask Mr. Attorney Galvin to talk about it at this point. It's, again, it falls under the derelict fee statute. And this is an arguable point. So in the grand scheme of things, do they own the property? They have said that they do. And if that is the case, then there's a possibility that those lines of that right of way technically go away, but they stay, and then all these pieces could technically come together. But then those lines of the right of way turn into an easement line. So I don't know where these numbers are coming from. These 15 versus these 14.6. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know why. I don't know why they're asking for these numbers when it looks like they're greater than that. That's my problem here. You know, the emergency access parking lot is 15.4 feet from Wilson Street. No, it's not. The emergency access parking spot, where
They call it a parking spot.
parking lot, the emergency access / parking lot is 15.4 feet from Wilson Street. Now, are we looking at the same plans? You know, are they talking about that, like the emergency access, forego the gate? Here, I'm gonna share my screen again so you can look at this. And Pat, see if you concur with me.
I think they're talking about the sidewalk, the corner of the sidewalk just north of that emergency access.
Right here. This, am I sharing my screen? Can everybody see this?
Well, that's the emergency access, but you see the sidewalk, the corner of the sidewalk just north, yeah, right there. I think
Okay.
that is the 15.6 or whatever it is off of Wilson, 15.4.
All right, so that's 15.4, but then again, you got this over here, which is even closer,
Right.
you know, and there's a potential that here is even closer. It'd actually be right to here. So there's a possibility that it's actually more than that.
Well, can we ask the applicant to clarify that waiver request?
Nope.
No.
Hearing is closed.
Right.
So how do we act on
Can-
this?
Can I make a suggestion here?
Yep.
And you all kind of need to think of when you're evaluating conditions. If this is such a significant matter of local concern that it outweighs the regional need for affordable housing, then deny the variance. But just understand what that really means. Pat or I, at some point, will have to go to the Housing Appeals Committee and we'll have to convince them that this is such a significant public safety issue that it outweighs the regional need, not Rockland's need, the regional need for affordable housing. And let me tell you something, that is a really hard thing to do on this particular issue.
And
And,
honestly,
you
Bob,
know,
I don't think that anybody
mi-
disagrees with you. It's a matter of trying to understand where they were coming from at this point. Nobody could really understand what it was referring to, because in reality, they're incorporating a design element, that parking lot that's over there, that's over the right of way line on both sides and goes into the residential piece on the other side.
Yeah, I think it's a setback issue though, ultimately.
No, I know, we know it's a setback issue. It's just a matter of, we were trying to figure out where it was. That was
Okay.
a big question. So now that we know where it is, it's a matter of, are we gonna allow it or not?
And it's your call is in all circumstances.
Yep.
Well, I'd say we'd have to assume that it was what Pat was saying, that it's that corner of that sidewalk,
Mhm.
and then just allow it. And if it was something different that that we didn't understand because of the vagueness of that waiver, then maybe we appeal it or whatever. But I
What-
think now, I'm sorry, Pat.
You know what you could do, Pat? Greg, is you could say that assuming it relates to that specific condition, you grant it as if it relates to that specific issue only.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So
I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a great idea.
So you would assume, because you can't ask questions to get more public information, that this proposed setback issue concerns that corner of the building identified by Mr. Brennan. And if, assuming that it relates to that specific issue, then you decide whether that's an issue that you want to uphold or deny.
Okay.
And you could deny it in every other respect.
You okay with that, Gregor?
Yeah, I am.
All right. So is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it a motion. Yeah,
And
Second,
we got a second there. Roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
yes.
Golf is a yes.
yes,
And Mr. Baker is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior. So again, as it relates to the northwesterly 90-degree corner of Wilson to Cedar.
Yeah, or as it relates to our understanding, yeah, whatever.
So along those lines, Deb, you got that? Good. All right. So let me get off of there, go to here. There's that. Number 7, 415-20. The proposed apartment buildings will be 5 stories tall and approximately 69 feet above finished grade. This is 2 stories interior. Didn't we just, I feel like we just dealt with this. Didn't
we
just-
did before.
Yeah, the problem is there was a provision of the bylaw with a table, and now this is the narrative section of the bylaw, so they're asking for it to be waived in both areas.
And that's the one that we questioned.
So number 4 and number 7, we're gonna pass on right now. I'm gonna go measure that and then I'll report that back. Pat, I'm gonna end up calling you with the numbers that I come up with. Yeah. And again, so you weren't here when we started talking about it. The 5-story hotel that's on Hingham Street. Mr. Rubel and I went out and did measure that. I don't have those numbers here. And quite honestly, the easiest thing to do would be to go remeasure it. So I'm gonna go remeasure it to the parapet wall. Subtract off the parapet wall to get to the actual, the actual top of the building, and then add on for the parapet wall, and then add on for any other structures or part of the building that's even higher than that. So I'm gonna get as many. So 4 and 7, we're gonna pass on right now. Number 8, chapter 415 zoning bylaw, 415-22 building and lot regulations F. The proposed project does not conform to the off-street parking requirements as enforced. Okay, so another parking situation.
So 8 and 10 really go together.
8 and 10 go together. I like
Pretty
that.
much.
Yeah, along the same lines.
5, 8, and 10. 5, 8, and 10.
5, 8, and 10. So 5, we grant.
We grant it.
8 and 10 are very much the same. So it really comes down to, are we going to grant, the project does not conform to the off-street park. Are we going to waive the off-street parking requirements? And then are we going, and if you tie in 10, are we going to grant the 1.5? Sounds like we're going to deny both of them. That's what it sounds like to me, because all we care about is you can have the 9x18 spaces, all of them. But we're going to require a specific number of parking spaces.
Correct.
So it sounds to me, unless I hear something different, it sounds to me that both 8 and 10 are going to get denied.
Can you read number 8 again, Rob?
Absolutely. Chapter 415 zoning bylaw, section 22 building and lot regulations, section F. The proposed project does not conform to the off-street parking requirements as in 415-35 of the bylaw.
So what I think they're getting at, Rob, is that 415-35 has a subsection B for multifamily residences in a zoning B district.
Mhm.
And it says you got to have at least 1.5 spaces for each dwelling unit. And it has to be located within 600 feet of a building.
Which letter was that?
415-35B,
Mm.
subsection 9.
9. Multifamily residences in zoning district B, but they're not in zoning district B.
I get it, but this whole section relates to the off-street parking requirements of a bylaw. And what they're saying is that they don't comply with 415-35A1. 3 spaces for each dwelling unit into 2-family residence or multifamily residence.
My
So
problem here.
based upon what I've heard you talking about, it sounds to me like you're okay with the spaces being 9x18,
Mhm.
but you're not inclined to waive through 415-35A1.
Correct.
15,
So
31.
you would be, as it relates to 8, you would be granting the waiver in part and denying it in part.
Okay. So we're granting in part and denying in part.
Yeah, you're granting it as to the size of the spaces, you're denying it as to the request to waive the number of spaces.
415, let me just look at 415-22F. 415-22, okay, number of buildings, what are we going to do? 415-20. Okay, I just want to look at 22, add 22F, so I know exactly what we're talking. 22. 2 and then A, B, C, D, E, F. Multifamily developments, shall have to minimum area, open space, building relationship, off-street parking facilities shall be as set forth in 415-35. So now you got to go down to 35. Ooh, wrote this. 35. And then what do they say? 35.
That's where it says the 3 spaces for multifamily.
That's the 3. Yeah. Only okay. So again, I just want to make sure I understand what they're requesting. The proposed project does not conform to, so we know that it does not conform to when it comes to 415-35. So we're denying. We're
Deny number,
Right.
I think waivers 8 and 10 are the exact same waiver.
that's what I'm said. That's what I said from the beginning, but now it's, if they're the exact same waiver request, then yeah, we're going to deny both 8 and 10 because we want more spaces. So I need to-
Rob, just to clarify something too. Off-street parking means the parking lot.
Yep. Anything that's not on Wilson or Pond,
Right.
basically. So it's all off-street parking. Yeah, so if
It's the parking areas.
yeah, any place parking on site. So again, 8 and 10, I believe that they are the same. I think everybody agrees that they're the same. It sounds like in one fair swoop, 8 and 10 we deny. So I'll make a motion that we deny both waiver requests, number 8 and number 10.
Second,
Roll call, Mr. Tanzi. What'd you say?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, myself is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
yes,
And I know we've already voted on it, so there's no turning back at this point, but non-voting members, you agree with where we're coming from here?
I do.
Okay.
so we have voting in part and denying in part is what,
Nope.
Mr. Galvin is-
Denying number 8 and we are denying number 10.
right, I understand that, denying number 10.
Yep. That's
so
it.
we'll have to put a condition in that they have to have 2.0 spaces per unit.
Exactly.
Great.
Okay,
Well, no, it technically, all right, so wait a second. So Pat, you said 3 because it does require, the bylaw does require 3 per unit. So is that the definition?
That's
Saying
the
that- is
the
that-
definition. Yeah, the definition, 3 spaces for each dwelling unit in a 2-family residence or multifamily residence.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna say. Mr. Hanson, if you don't stop with the peanut gallery, I'm gonna bounce you. These comments are going to everybody out here and you're not supposed to be talking. So if I see one more, or if anybody on the board sees one more, I'm bouncing you. End of story. So what I want to know is, or what I want to review is, we did deny 8 and 10. But in order to condition it to be 2 spaces per unit, do we have to grant 8?
No, because 8 just points to the regulation that 10 is requesting the waiver from. So it's the same waiver. So if you're looking to condition 2 spaces, you just make that a condition. You still deny 8 and 10.
Bob, do you agree with that?
Give me just 1 second here.
You're not muted.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I'm fighting my iPad, which is losing power quick. I thought that what the right thing to do would be to have a motion based upon what you've already discussed on 8 to grant that waiver in part and to deny it in part. And the grant is as to the size of the spaces and the denial is as to the number of spaces.
We've already,
Um, Yeah, the size of the spaces is not defined in 415-35. It's only defined in 415-22.
Yeah, but I'm concerned that if we're not clear about this, the developer will make some other argument about it. And I think 5, 8, and 10 are all related to one another and somewhat duplicative. So it doesn't conform to the off-street requirement. Well, I mean, are you looking at that first section of A1 and saying it doesn't have 3 spaces? And therefore to just deny it?
Yeah, 415-35A, 1 is the 3 spaces per multifamily unit. And so that's number 10, period. Number
Well,
eight,
the local regulation they're asking for a waiver is 415.22, but it incorporates the 3 spaces per unit out of 415.35.
right, and that's all it does. For the 415.22.
Okay, then I agree with you. It should be denied based on the board's prior discussion.
okay, so both of those have, we've already taken it, we've already denied them both, everything's cool. My question still remains, now that we've denied both of those, can we condition it to require 2 spaces? Because
Yes.
is it,
I think what you're doing, if you're talking about doing it that way, is you're actually granting a partial waiver.
that's, yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, and I don't know how to deal with this. I mean,
Well, it's pretty simple. When you get to 10,
Yep.
you can revote 10 and grant a partial waiver to allow 2 spaces per unit.
Okay,
All right,
all right. So I make a motion to go out of order. Can we look at 10 right now? I make a motion, yes?
Yes,
Okay,
Second.
that's second, perfect.
Yep.
Tansy, you're yes?
yes,
I'm yes. Mr. Baker Senior, let's go to 10.
Yep.
I wish to take back
Reconsider.
I wish to reconsider the decision on number 10.
second,
Okay, Mr. Tansy,
yes.
yourself is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
yes,
Okay. How do we word this, Bob?
So, and you took a yes too. So now you make a
Yes.
motion to grant a partial waiver from the numerical provisions of 415.35A1 to allow 2 units, 2 spaces per unit.
I'll make that motion.
So moved. Mr. Tansy seconds that, yes?
Yes,
Okay, Mr. Tansy, roll call.
yes,
Myself is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes,
Okay, so we did that. Non-voting members. Do we understand where we are?
Yes,
Okay, just
I
making
do.
sure that everybody, does Mr. Baker Junior understand what we did?
I do, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right. Now we back up to number 9. The project, 415-29, the number of buildings. The project site design includes 2 principal uses of apartment buildings, only 1 principal resident. This is self-explanatory. Number of buildings. There's only supposed to be 1. They want 2. I don't think we have a choice. So I make a motion that we grant this variance or grant this.
second,
I got a second roll call. Mr. Tansy,
yes,
self is a yes. Mr. Baker, Senior,
yes,
done. Okay, so there's 9. 10, we did 11. 11, 415-94. Types of sites and properties. This project is being submitted for approval from the ZBA, but will allow review from the design review board, given that it will not hold up the approval process. I was trying to go to site plan. We are site plan review. So we have to deny this.
we're site but not design. There's a
No,
design review board, which is the planning board.
no, it's still us, as far as I know. Attorney Galvin, Are we all, yep, hold on, please. All right, I'm gonna pass over this for right now. We'll come back to it. Number 12, rules and regulations of the planning board. All buildings and zonings and zoning district boundaries within 200 feet of the site are not shown on the site plans per this regulation. Pat, do you have the planning board rules and regs up?
I'll get them all.
All right, so we're gonna pass that for right now. So we have to continue to look at 11 and 12. So let's just go back. Actually, everything from henceforth looks like it's all planning board. So we're gonna wait.
I don't know why they had to ask for a waiver for that last one. Showing it was a locust map, is that what it was
No,
basically?
to all buildings and zoning district boundary lines within 200 feet of the site are not shown on the site plans per this regulation.
Yeah, but that's like a locust map.
I know, that's not, no, no,
I don't,
no, that's laziness. That's
Yeah.
laziness. No.
Yeah.
So, Rob, I just had to step away for one
No, that's
second.
understood.
You were talking about 11, right?
We're looking at 11. Aren't we the design review board also?
You are. You
Right.
are.
So this project is being submitted for approval from the ZBA, but will allow review for the given that it will not hold up the approval process. We grant it, we're the zoning board, or we're the design review board. Unless we want them to go to the design review board. But
Well,
if
you had the option of sending this design to the design review board and receiving their comments while the public hearings were open.
right, and we got that.
And I'm not sure that you did or you didn't do that, but in any event, you're the local approving authority on behalf of all local boards. So this really is a waiver that's kind of routine.
Right, no, I understand that, and from a site design aspect.
They also said that they don't have the final plans of the design.
Yeah. So what you typically do with that, Mr. Baker, is they'll come up with a final set of design plans, and Mr. Brennan and Mr. Rubel will determine whether the plans are consistent with the approved plans and approved architectural plans. And if there's any question, Mr. Rubel and Mr. Brennan will come back to you all and have you decide that.
So
So what do
again, it looks like it's a waiver approval.
Motion approved.
Got a motion, second, Mr. Tanzi,
yes,
roll call, Mr. Tanzi,
yes,
Self is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to go to planning board on that. Number 12, all buildings and zoning
Oh.
district boundaries within 200 feet of the site are not shown on the site plans per this regulation. That is laziness. That is create a second, that's, no. That's easy
Well,
enough.
Deb had a question.
Deb had a question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a quick one. So is 11 granted or denied?
11 is granted.
Granted.
Okay, thank you.
12, I say denied.
I agree.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, that's laziness. We do this all, it's, professionals have to do this all the time.
You know what you might want to do here is you might want to require them to show it on their final plan set.
Yeah,
That's what we're doing. If we deny it, they'd have to. Right?
Well, they haven't shown them on their preliminary plans. And remember, these are preliminary plans. And I think that's what they're asking for approval. So you could say, we want them to show them on the final plan set.
Yeah, and really all they have to do is show the zoning district boundaries on the aerial photo that they have on the cover sheet. Yes, all the buildings within 200 feet are shown on that.
Okay, so whatever it takes to make them do
So deny the waiver.
deny the waiver.
Motion to deny the waiver.
Second, roll call, Mr. Tanzi,
yes,
Self is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Denied. Number 13, the access roadway begins to curve off a right angle at station 48.85 feet from the center line of Pond Street, which is 51.15 feet less than the required distance of 100 feet from the intersecting street line of Pond Street. Pat, how do you feel?
So what this regulation is that the planning board rules and regulations require streets to intersect other streets at a right angle for 100 feet. You know, this is technically, it's not a street, it's a driveway. But they're you know, they're trying to comply as best they can, and they can't do the full 100 feet. So it's only 48.85 feet that's a right angle, and then it bears off.
How you feel? How do you feel, Pat?
The traffic engineers were okay with it.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion to approve this? Not approve it, but grant this waiver?
Motion
I'll
to
make
grant waiver.
Mr. Tanzi, is that a second?
Yes,
Roll call, Mr. Tanzi?
yes.
Dolph is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior?
Yes,
Done. Number 14, the roadway entrance has a slope of 3%. This is greater than the maximum slope of 1% required for the first 100 feet of roadway. Mr. Brennan?
They have the slope of 3%, but I believe, I'm just checking right now, I believe it's a slope into the site. So that's, the 1% is typically a 1% downgrade coming into the intersection, so that if it's icy conditions, you know, if it's greater than that, you have trouble stopping. So I don't believe this is an issue.
All right, so the 3%, so when it comes to the 3% is coming from the site to Pond Street,
Coming from Pond Street into the site.
into the site. So if they start to skid, they're just gonna skid down the driveway. And they're
Actually,
not.
no, it is heading toward Pond Street. It does go down from the site toward Pond Street.
Okay, so I would say that we could grant this, we grant this waiver. But when it comes to snow removal and snow maintenance, or however that gets notified. Wait a second. Hey, Pat, can we require that extra salt, I guess, or
no,
You don't want salt there. It's in the
salt-free zone.
okay. So how do we deal with this?
What if we made them pour a concrete pad that has the rumple strips in it that for traction?
What if they heat
Seen
it?
them around before.
What if you have heating coils below the pavement?
But if you get a power outage, then they don't work anyway.
Pat?
Have to have backup power generator.
Another building.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, this is a planning board, again, it's for a street, so technically, does it apply here? I'm not sure, because this is technically a driveway, it's not a street.
Driveway. Exactly. And so does it
Yeah.
actually apply?
But the thing of it is, this access way is gonna have more traffic than the average cul-de-sac road that's required to have this type of a grade control.
Pat, based on what you see on the profile, can we change this? Can we make them go the other way? Can we make
No.
it, is it possible to redesign it to a 1%?
They may be able to reduce it a little bit. They may be able to get the 1% for the first 50. It only has to be for 50 feet.
Okay.
They may be able to do that.
Would you feel comfortable backing this if we denied it?
It's a money issue, I would think, Pat, right?
Um,
And a safety issue?
If it's a money issue, it would cost them less, because it would bring the grade down coming into the site, so there'd be less fill coming off on the street. It's more of a grading issue to make the drainage work. But I think 1%, they can make the drainage work with 1% just as easily as 3. So I think,
That- Would that be for the cover of the cul-de-sac? The culvert that they gotta change? Yeah,
yeah, the culvert, I'm just looking at what I think they'll still have plenty of cover over that culvert. I think they could make it 1% for 50 feet. And it wouldn't be terrible. It wouldn't be a major change, I don't believe.
I'll make a motion to deny it for the 100 feet and put a condition in that it be 50, the first 50 feet,
So then that's a partial waiver then.
partial waiver.
Pat, is the requirement 100 or 50?
So it's 100 feet for a residential feeder or industrial street and 50 feet for a local residential street.
So they're looking at this as a major, they're looking at this
Yeah.
as a major roadway. That's how they, feel.
Yeah, I think the partial to 50 would be reasonable here.
Okay. So, Mr. Baker, you were saying, I know you said it, can you say it again, please?
A motion to grant the waiver for the slope of 1% required for the first 100 feet, change it to 50 feet of roadway at 1%.
So it's a motion to grant a partial waiver to allow the roadway entrance to have a slope of 1% for the first 50 feet, not 1%
Yeah.
for the first 100 feet.
You're supposed to be 3% for the first 100 feet.
Well, that's what they have.
No, that's what they're proposing.
That's what
It's
they're
supposed to be,
proposing. But we only
Yeah.
want.
So you're gonna,
We only want the 1%, not the
you're only
3.
gonna give them the ability to do that after the first 50 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a partial waiver.
Okay.
yeah. I'll second the partial waiver.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second to second the partial waiver. We're obviously gonna go over this again. Deb, do you know where we're
Yeah.
going with this?
Excuse me?
You know where we're going with this?
Yes.
Okay, so I got a motion, I got a second, roll call, Mr. Mr. Tanzi,
Yes,
self is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
So that goes through. Non-voting members, you understand what we did?
Yes,
Yes, very cool, all right. Okay, number 14, we just did, number 15, all drain pipes are HDPE rather than class 3 reinforced concrete pipe. The minimum cover is approximately 2 feet, a half foot less than the required 2.5 feet of cover. Pat, what's the minimum required cover for an HDPE pipe?
Well, structurally, it's only a foot, but I can tell you that the planning board, if this was a public road, they would not allow the HDPE pipe,
Right,
but because it's a private site, they allow it regularly for private sites.
yep. When it comes to the cover, the 2.5 feet of cover, is that supposed to be 2.5 feet of cover over concrete?
It's just over drain pipe, so
It's over drain pipe regardless of what it is?
correct.
What's the minimum for an what's the minimum cover required for an HDPE? pipe?
A foot.
Greg,
I mean,
we got two warring civil engineers here, so I want to make sure that we're both that everybody's on the same page. Greg, is it a 1 foot?
yeah, if it has to be properly bedded, you could get away with a 1 foot cover, especially if it's being paved over.
So do we agree that the 2 feet, the approximate 2 feet of cover that they're proposing over the HDPE pipe is satisfactory? Engineers, do we agree?
Yeah,
I think approximately 2 feet is too vague.
Okay,
I think you should make it granted to allow 2 feet of cover.
a minimum.
Partial waiver to allow 2 feet of cover.
Okay,
agree.
does anybody want to make that motion?
Well,
So moved.
Pat, do you think we should also put a caveat that they backfill it with flowable fill?
I mean, you could, like you said, if they bed it all with crushed stone, it's typically fine, but, let me,
Is that a cost, is that cost prohibitive?
Well,
flowable fill is more expensive, but I don't know if it's cost prohibitive.
it is more expensive, but it's quicker in construction. I mean, you get adequate compaction right there.
Yeah, and I don't believe there's a lot of areas where they actually, it's only at certain catch basins, because that's the highest point of the drainage system, so. I'm just looking to see what their pipe bedding detail looks like. They just have a typical.
Yeah. It's typical.
Yeah, I mean, I think Greg's suggestion is reasonable. Grant the waiver to 2 feet, but require flowable fill for anything less than 2.5 feet.
I like it. Because there's only, because as you said, there's only a couple of places that would actually require the flowable fill.
I mean, I'm going on memory, but yeah, I don't believe there's a lot.
Okay. All right, so it's so it sounds like, again, a partial waiver, I think. We're gonna grant the 2 foot, but we're gonna require that anything less than 2.5 feet is gonna require flowable fill.
Backfilling with flowable fill.
Attorney Galvin, does that work?
Yeah, my understanding is you're granting a partial waiver to allow 2 feet of cover with flowable fill in any areas where there's less than 2.5 feet.
And so that works.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to if it's an expense issue that creates a problem for them, they'll appeal it. If not, then don't. But I mean, if Pat believes that this is an appropriate condition, I'm all for it.
Okay, so Mr. Tanzi, you made that condition? Or
Yes.
you made that motion, Mr. Baker Senior? You want to second that?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Golf is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior?
Yes.
Yes. Non-voting members, understand?
I do.
Cool.
No,
Mr. Galley, I didn't get it from you. Do you understand?
I said I understand enough.
Okay, all right. Again.
With flowable fill, flowable.
FLOW.
Okay, got it.
Able.
Flow able.
Flowable fill.
Got it.
So number 16, rules and regs, the proposed design has catch basins that collect water from a stretch of 742 feet of continuous grade. This is 442 feet greater than the maximum 300. And then they do the math for us.
This is the access road, the entry road.
Yeah.
They have a high point in at about 250, 300 feet in. And then they have a continuous grade from there all the way to where they start their catch basins in by the buildings.
In by the buildings, is that coming from Pond Street? Is that going up or going down? It's going up, right?
It's going away from Pond Street.
Right, going away from Pond Street. So once you start at that continuous grade, you're going up as opposed to going down into the site.
No, so from Pond Street, you come up to a high point about 300 feet in, and then
Yep.
you go down into the site.
And then you
So
go
it's-
down into the site.
And
Okay.
it's that stretch going down into the site from the high point in is that stretch.
Okay, the proposed design is catch basins that collect water from a stretch of that to that. Do you know what the percentage is? Do you have the profile there?
It's 1%.
Really? That's like flat.
I would suggest they put a couple of drain manholes in for cleanouts.
The problem is they can't, they don't have the grades to get it, because they're doing the underground infiltration systems.
Right,
Everything is premised on groundwater from those. So every inch that they pick things up, they're losing grade. That's why they're looking for the limited cover, the catch basins, because they're trying to pick everything up as much as possible. And that's why the catch basins, they don't have the manholes all the way out. Otherwise, they couldn't make it work by gravity. And they don't want to, what we don't want them doing is dumping water out into the wetlands along the causeway. Would rather have it run down that pavement and get to the catch basins where it can be treated and go into their underground infiltration systems.
You okay with it, Pat? You reviewed that you were.
Yeah, wouldn't you just want them to have appropriate number of cleanouts and inspection ports?
Yeah, they have those. This is the catch basins that actually the grates that you see in the pavement where the water will collect. And again, it's going into their site, so it's not going to cause any type of a safety issue on Pond Street. It's only internal to the site. And they have, when it gets into the site, they have 3 or 4 catch basins right there to capture all that flow, and most of them are double grades.
And again, this is only a waiver from the requirement that catch basins can only be spaced every 300 feet. That's the way I understand it. So,
Correct.
if Pat's okay with the design, okay, Mr. I hear it. So you got a motion,
motion to grant
Mr.
the waiver.
Tanzi?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
Self is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes,
None. Number 17, subsurface infiltration chambers are proposed, but are not permitted unless approved by the board.
That's correct, and that's exactly what how the planning board rules and regulations read. And as I mentioned, the subsurface chambers, the planning board typically waives this on private sites.
Okay. Make a motion
motion
to
to
waive.
waive.
I got a motion to waive. I got a second.
Yeah.
I'll second. Mr. Tanzi, roll call.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes,
Done. Next. Test.
Minute. Excuse
Whoa.
me.
Yes.
Are you granting or denying that?
Granted.
granting.
Granting. Okay, thank you.
That was number 17. Number 18. Test.
17, yeah.
What happened?
Go ahead.
Okay, number 18, test pits were performed throughout different locations in the site, and infiltration rates were taken based on texture and Raoul's rates per the Mass DEP stormwater standards. Who's Raoul?
Yeah, it's the Rawls rates, and this is standard practice now. The planning board rules and regs were last revised prior to the 2008 stormwater management standard. And so this is the way that we do this type of design now. So I don't have any issue with this. And they did do test pits at the locations of all the drainage basins. Henry Nova actually witnessed all of those.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with that one.
All right, I'll make a motion to grant the waiver.
Okay.
I got a second. Roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes,
Okay, number 18 is good. Let's see, 19. The proposed site trees will be placed per the landscaping plans. This varies from the requirements stated within this section of the rules and regulations. Pat?
The rules and regulations require 3 shade trees for every 100 feet of roadway. On each side. or spaced evenly on each side. So they're not proposing trees along that entrance road,
Right.
mainly because they don't have room for them.
And it's not a road. It's a
Right, it's
driveway.
a driveway. Yep.
So again, I would entertain a motion to grant that.
Make a motion to grant,
Second,
Roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
yes.
Golf is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
yes,
Here we go. 19,
That was 19.
19 rather, 20. Infill sections, the side slope shall not exceed 4 horizontal to 1 vertical, known as a 4-to-1 slope. There are proposed fill side slopes graded at 2-to-1 horizontal to vertical grades. This is steeper than the requirement. That,
This is right at the entrance where they have their fire retention basin or rain garden on the left, on the south side of the driveway as you pull in.
Mhm.
I don't really see a problem with it because they have guardrails along there. And they do have retaining walls, so the area where the slopes are is fairly limited.
so it's more of a safety requirement than a drainage requirement.
Yeah, it's not drainage, and it is safety. And with the guardrail, you're protecting the vehicles.
Okay, so safety requirement, but they are providing protection.
Right.
Good. Mr. Tanzi,
Yes, I'll make a motion to grant.
okay, so that's where I was going. I was just asking if you were okay with this, but so if you make the motion, Mr. Baker, I got to heard a second. Roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes,
Golf is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
yes,
Okay, so that takes care of that, other than we got to go back to, okay, number 1, wetlands bylaw deal. So, Pat. Big smile on his face. Okay, how do we deal with this? Because in the
what
grant,
about that paragraph on the
hold
waivers?
on, hold on, we're going, what'd you say?
The last paragraph on the waivers on sheets, on page 3,
Yeah.
did you read that?
We should deny that language.
That's what I was
As
thinking.
as a matter of fact, the regular condition of our agreements is, to the extent that any waiver hasn't been requested, the remaining local rules and regulations remain in full force and effect.
Right. That's why I didn't go by it. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Well, he didn't number it as a waiver, but it's on there, so I think Mr. Baker's right,
Okay.
that you should address that language and deny that.
Okay.
I'm making motion to deny 21. But
second,
But did that come from theirs?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it did. All right. So, yeah, you got a motion. We got a second. Roll call. Mr. Tanzi,
yes,
myself is a yes. Mr. Baker Senior.
yes,
That's cool. Just make sure we call it what it is, paragraph following.
didn't want something slipping away.
Yeah, paragraph as provided following waiver number 20. All right, going back to number 1. How do we weigh it? How do we work with this? Because it's obvious that in order to make this work, they have to, the bylaw for the entry road has to be waived. And you got no choice there. But the rest of it, and they should be subject at least to the 25-foot no touch for the rest of the site.
So Pat, what I was thinking is they would grant a partial waiver to allow the roadway to be constructed as shown on the last revised plans. But I think the board needs your input on what we do on the other aspects of what they're proposing the waiver for.
Yeah, so the areas where this comes into play, it hits that L building and the retaining wall and the grading north of that L building is within that 25-foot buffer.
Yep.
The northwest corner of the parking is in that buffer.
Yep.
Then they're pretty good going around the west side, around the south side until they hit the parking area to the east of the bar building.
And I shared my screen so everybody can see this. Pat, follow me here. This dashed
that's-
line here is the 25-foot no touch.
Correct.
That's the first place that he identified. Coming around, this is the second place that he identified. Coming around, this is the third place. Coming around, parking lot over here. And that's all the 25-foot buffer. They're outside over here. It looks like they're just kissing it right here, maybe.
Yep.
So how do we word this? I guess that's the question.
Well, the effect of a denial would result in them having to redesign the project. I mean, and they're gonna definitely say that if we can't build that big building, they're probably gonna lose, I don't even know how many units.
Mhm.
They'll claim that denial renders the project uneconomic. That's what I would expect. I don't even know how many, Pat, how many units would they lose if they had to comply with that regulation on that building?
That's a good question. I mean, that building would have to be completely redesigned because it wouldn't be an L anymore. It'd be a much different shape to make that work. They would maybe even have to break that up into two buildings. But yeah, on that north side, that's the worst place because it's not only there, but it's, that emergency fire access goes through there. It goes through that emergency fire access too. So it's that whole basically the whole north side of the site is within that.
So if we grant it, let's just say, again, it's the 25-foot, but it's the 25-foot no touch that we got to look at. So if we were to say that, okay, based on, according to the plan here, we're gonna allow the disturbance into the 25-foot no touch, into the 25-foot no touch. But typically, when something like this, you look at other towns, they'll require mitigation.
Right.
Can we do that?
I would ask Attorney Galvin if that, I would think that you could, because in this instance, you're acting as the Conservation Commission with the local bylaw. So I would suspect that you could ask for mitigation elsewhere on site, which will be south of where the development's taking place, because that's where the other upland is. But I think that's certainly an alternative.
You could require 1-to-1 mitigation for all areas within there.
Or 2-to-1. This is 25 feet. This is significant. And
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of developers will come in and they'll say, hey, look at all we have to do is comply with state standards. And, state standards don't have these buffer zones like this. Only locals do. And, I think it's a better view to require them to mitigate than to deny.
that's what
Whatever the mitigation Pat would recommend would be appropriate.
5-to-1.
Well, I mean, I think some of the mitigation might be, well, they gave us what the total disturbance in the buffer zone was, in the 25-foot no touch was. I can find that somewhere, but, and again, this is a buffer zone. It's not wetland technically. Usually when you're doing mitigation, you're turning.
We do treat the buffer zone as a resource area though in Rockland now.
Yeah, so I suppose you can have them do 1-to-1 mitigation and on the, the southern end of the site, have them turn however many square feet that is of upland into wetland.
But
It
again,
provides more flood storage on site and everything else. So
here's my question though, or this is my thought. The local bylaw treats everything that's within 100 feet of the resource area, like the resource area. So technically.
No, I mean, no, it's jurisdictional, but
Yep,
what resource area is the 25-foot buffer zone, because that's a no-touch area.
that's an absolute no touch. But there are certain things that they make you, there are certain things that they make you do with your. in the
But you can
100
build a brand new building right up to the 25-foot line, but you can't do it inside 25 feet.
Okay,
So it's not the same. 25 is definitely a resource area under a bylaw.
okay, then I say 2 to 1.
All right, so the disturbance on the plan that they have, the disturbance within 25 feet is 43,248 square feet.
All right, so it's an acre. So I say make them do 2 acres worth of replication. Or mitigation. And it's and again, it is buffer zone. So I don't know, I look at other towns that I've worked in that require 2 to 1 if you're in the 50. So
I think you're right, Rob, because this will also protect the neighborhood from any further building that way.
Hmm.
You know, 10, 20 years from now, they say, oh, we're gonna put another building out here. We got a different board and,
Mhm.
you know, that would protect that.
But this is not replication, this is mitigation, correct, Pat? So we're not having.
Mitigation, correct, but so what you're looking for is, 2 acres of wetland creation.
So it is wetlands, so there we are, okay. All right. So it's mitigation, but it's replication.
Yep.
Mitigation by replication, okay. Mr. Tanzi, how do you feel?
I think it's our only option. Do they have 2 acres of upland to do the mitigation
Pat?
or replication?
I think they could probably find it. While you guys are talking, I'll see if I can kind of see how much upland area they have in that southern portion.
Okay. Attorney Galvin, does that satisfy? If that's how we're able to come up with this, does that satisfy this first one as a partial?
It's a partial waiver.
Yep, so it's a partial waiver. And and again, it's going to satisfy all of that verbiage in the waiver for number 1.
Well, I think what you'd say is the motion would be to grant a partial waiver to allow the roadway to be constructed within 25 feet of the edge of the resource areas.
Okay.
That's shown on the plan. And to allow the other disturbance in the other areas, subject to 1-to-1 mitigation in an upland area to the southerly side of the site.
2 to 1 if we can get it. If Pat's checking the area.
Well, you have to decide that. Not me.
Right. No, so far we're talking 2 to 1, but all right. So
Right, and the mitigate, I mean, the 43,000 and change includes the 25 foot along the roadway.
Well, then they should. It should include the 25 foot all over the entire site.
I mean, one of their points was that a lot of this area was already disturbed, and it might be, but it hasn't been touched in a long time, other than for some testing. So as far as I'm concerned, it's resource area.
It is resource area, and they're increasing it. They're increasing it.
But as a practical matter, if there's not enough upland to do the 2 to 1, then requiring them to do it is not going to help you at all.
Right.
Yeah, looking at the I had run a polyline around the southern upland, and it's about 3.5, almost 3.5 acres.
3 to 1.
No, they can't do that because they're putting their wells out there, and they're going to need some upland to get the water line out. But I
2
think
to
2 to 1.
1. Okay, so we got 2 to 1.
Well, but Pat, discuss with the board what's really involved in mitigation, because they're not the Conservation Commission and they may not be as familiar with what the replication entails. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a
And let
lot
me-
of work, and it usually involves monitoring over 2 growing seasons. And, you know, Pat, you probably have a ballpark idea what it would cost to create 1 acre. I don't know what it would be for 2.
Yeah, when looking at the topography out there, it would be difficult to do 2 acres because there's a high point at the very southern end.
1.75. No? So the 1-to-1 is gonna have to be it?
I think you could definitely require the 1-to-1, because what they could do is yeah, they could certainly get they could certainly find an acre to create a wetland. And it wouldn't be that much. I mean, topographically, it's excavation of a foot or 2 of material, and then the plantings and so forth. So I think it would be doable out there. The
So
1-to-1.
1-to-1 would be doable, 2-to-1 would be pushing it.
Yeah, I think so.
Gregor, what do you feel?
Yeah, I think probably 1-to-1 is about the best, maybe 1.5-to-1 at the very top, you know, at tops is what I would feel. Somewhere around there.
You wanna form that, do we wanna form that into a motion of some sort?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we hold them to the 25-foot buffer out, you know, outside the areas of the site that would be considered limited access, and that they provide on-site mitigation at a 1.5-to-1 ratio, where they would replicate wetland where they had to lose wetland.
All right, did you say 1.5 or did you mean 1-to-1?
Well, I would prefer a 1.5-to-1 if it's possible. If it's not possible, then we're gonna have to go to 1-to-1. So Pat, do you think they could do 1.5-to-1?
I'm gonna check something right now.
Again, I'd prefer 5-to-1, but
I'd prefer a 10-to-1, but we're in, you know, we have to be realistic.
no, I know.
Yeah.
Well, while we're waiting,
Yes,
I talked with Dave Taylor,
yes.
a 3 to 6 inch snowstorm that would be plowed in that parking lot.
Mhm.
The snow banks would be at least 10 feet high.
Okay.
You were asking that at the last meeting,
And that was at, what'd you say, a 3 to 6?
3 to 6. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. I mean, the on-site snow storage is gonna be nuts here.
right.
Yeah, and we're gonna have, when we get there, we're gonna have to talk about, you know, height of snowbanks. And I think Gregor already talked about it, so, you know, it's,
For safety reasons to
Yeah.
begin with.
Looking at this, what I just did is found out the area of the 25-foot buffer around the southern portion, and that's less than an acre. So And that's where you'd want to create the wetland, is adjacent to the wetland as much as possible. So I think an acre is probably, I think an acre and a half may not be doable. Not, it's probably doable physically, but economically, I'm not sure how they would view that. They probably wouldn't. They'd probably say that it's not economic.
You're saying we should leave it at 1-to-1 to be safe?
I think so, because I think that's more defensible.
Okay. All right, well, I'll rescind my motion of 1-to-1 1.5-to-1 replication, and make a motion to replicate 1-to-1 on site.
Second,
Roll call, Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Myself is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior?
yes,
Yes. Non-voting members, you know where we are? Yes, everybody's happy with this?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Galley, do you need some coffee?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll keep my eyes open.
Your eyes are starting to droop there. If you want to put on sunglasses and just stare at the screen, I won't call on you.
Okay.
All right, so we went there. What was the, and then the other two that we got to deal with are the height of the building? I think those are the only, question from Deb.
Is that for that whole of number one or just that first paragraph?
That's what I kind of was going for. I hope that it does cover that whole thing. Because again, the whole thing that they're talking about is the 25-foot no disturbance buffer.
Right.
All
Okay.
right.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that 25, working with 25, existing 25-foot no disturbance zone on the site significantly disturbed. Access to the site from the South Street, 25 foot. The sewer extension also passes within 25 feet of the wetland. Other impacts to the 25 no disturbance zone have been avoided and minimized by using walls rather than that. Temporary impacts to the 25-foot buffer during construction will be revegetated after construction is complete. So I believe that everything that they're talking about is, again, it's a partial, just a recap. It's a partial waiver of the wetlands bylaw. And the way that the motion was worded, that works. Attorney Galvin, yes?
Yep.
Okay, as long as the way that we worded it covers that. Number one is a partial waiver. After that, the only other ones that we got to deal with are the height of the building.
and you were gonna check on that.
Yep, I gotta get there. I'll try and get there tomorrow. I'll get there before the end of the week. And I'll report back to Pat with my findings. So that's about it. So Joe, just so we're clear, I just want to make sure I know which numbers that we're looking at.
We're in
Or-
seven.
4, and what was the other one?
4 and 7.
4 and 7. All right, so 4 and 7, we got to revisit. Now we've done that. Do we want to talk about Pat's? Where did it go? Draft conditions, and then Deb just did that.
So Rob, in my view, we're gonna have to have another meeting because we don't have a draft decision yet either.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe 1 or 2 more meetings. So,
We only got until a week from Friday.
I got 8 conditions that Pat's got. I think we can go run through these real quick. Does anybody have any problems with just going with it? Because they're conditions from our new engineer.
No, I don't have any problems.
I think
But
we should incorporate all of Pat's conditions in.
just, I think that we're okay there. Do we want to just read them real quick, just to make certain? Does it, just anybody that's voting, just want to read them real quick? Can we do that, please?
Why don't you display them on the screen so that the public can see them?
Going
I
screen.
have a question about the wording in number 2.
We might want to wordsmith them anyways, but I think the concepts are all right on.
Yep. All fill brought in the site shall be uncontaminated. Yep. This, the applicant shall schedule deliveries to the site around the morning and afternoon rush hours. I can live with that.
I have a question about number 2. Does that mean that they were avoiding rush hour? Is that around? Is that what that means?
Yes.
Yes.
Hour?
Yeah, to avoid rush hour conditions. You know, they want to schedule
should-
them to
I think we
avoid
could
rush
Put
hour.
hours there.
Hmm?
No deliveries before 9 or after 2.
It's probably, I mean, there's a lot of people that do like workers arrive on a construction site, you know, during that time, and they're probably bringing stuff with them. But I do think that there should be an exclusion of deliveries during the morning and afternoon rush hours.
Didn't we at for Concord Street, didn't we do something where we, when it came to deliveries, they were to schedule all.
They have to go up Summer Street,
Well, they're,
out Summer Street.
I hear you, but didn't we put that in the hands of the police department?
Well, we put it in the conditions.
I think what Pat is really addressing here is deliveries of fill to the
Right.
site, if I'm not mistaken.
Wouldn't it rock the police department to determine the need?
That's correct.
Yeah,
So I think that as written, it's not bad. Because it is putting it in the hands of the
Right.
Rockland Police Department. So as written, I think it works. Let's see, in accordance with that, there shall be no sewer installation within the surface water supply zone A unless a variance is granted by the Mass DEP. Okay, everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
The applicant shall secure authorization from the Rockland Sewer Commission to connect to the Rockland sewer system. Got no problem there. The applicant shall provide documentation showing that there is adequate water supply for fire protection. Yep. The applicant shall provide documentation showing that there is adequate potable water, that there is adequate potable water supply for domestic use. Yep. Copies of all easements secured by the applicant to construct the project shall be submitted to the board. Yup. In the event that available on-site snow storage is exhausted, the owner shall have snow removed from the site and disposed of in a legal manner. Do we want to make that any more strict?
Within 24 hours after the storm.
I wouldn't give them that much time.
Almost.
Yeah. Attorney Galvin stepping up. I like that.
No, I mean, look at it, if you can't get in there and you wait 24 hours, someone's going to be pretty darn upset. The owner if they don't have the capacity, it has to be removed as soon as practicable.
In the event that the available on-site snow storage is exhausted, the owner shall have snow removed from the site and disposed of
Forthwith.
immediately. All right, so we're all in agreement. We're all in agreement that it's got to get done. It's got to get done right off the bat. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it becomes
All
a
right.
public safety issue if you don't.
correct.
Agreed. So from what I see here, the only one that really needs to be modified is number 8, and that's to make it more strict and again, just remove the snow immediately. Everybody on board with that?
Yeah,
All right. Let me just get rid of this. I'm stopping the sharing. No, I'm gonna stop the sharing. We're gonna stop the sharing like that. There we go. All right, so I got a motion. And yeah, so I made the motion. And then I need a second. Mr. Tanzi, did you make a second?
yeah, I'll make the second.
All right, roll call, Mr. Tanzi.
Yes,
Myself is a yes. Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Non-voting members, you hear what we said? You hear what we did?
I did, and I'm fine with it.
Happy, Mr. Galley?
I'm fine with it. I just, like I said, I was confused about the wording in number 2.
No, I understand that. Again, we're not, we're accepting them, but I think there's gonna be an Attorney Galvin, we can manipulate a little words here and there.
Yes,
Okay, so so that's fine. So we did,
you're gonna see and be able to review a draft decision denying and a draft decision approving.
Okay. All right, so good there. I would entertain a motion to continue this to another date and time.
I'll second that.
Okay?
Well, you
Deb,
gotta have a date and time certain.
I know. Deb, do you have like a date and time certain that we can make this work?
So the next hearing is next Tuesday on the 19th, but you have 2 hearings first.
Yep, I know.
Well, why don't you just add this to the agenda, and if you have time, you'll discuss it.
There we
Okay.
go. So,
Now- Do we want to request like an extension from the 25th?
I think that if we run up to problems, I mean, the goal will probably be to try to get a draft decision to the board for that night, so you can start reviewing it with action on everything that we've already done. And if we run up to it, we'll ask the applicant. If the applicant says no, we'll have another meeting, we'll get it done.
Do we want to start at 6:30?
I think I have a conflict at 6:30, so it would be better if we did 7:30 next Tuesday.
or if it's next Tuesday, we've already got 2 meetings scheduled, don't we?
Mhm.
Right.
So, but the agenda hasn't been done, correct?
No, not yet.
Okay,
Yeah, but the advertisement must have,
The advertisements have been done.
and they
it
have,
says a time too,
Well, the
right?
notice of meeting has been done, posted, but the agenda has not been posted yet. So I can add this on after deliberations on after the hearings.
there you go. So it's the only way to do it. So we can't modify the times when it comes to 6:30.
What is the start
I'll get
time
to
now, Deb?
6:30 and then for-
Start time
Mr.
7:30.
Baker- Mr. Baker Jr. has a conflict anyway. So the only way to do 6.
What is the start time?
7:30.
Oh,
Okay,
fine.
so we'll add it to the agenda afterwards. It doesn't have to have us, you can just add it to the agenda and we can do it before if somebody's late, or we can do it after. We can do it either way. It's not a scheduled public hearing.
Okay. Do you want to start at 6:30, do an hour of deliberation?
I won't be able to be there at 6:30, but I could do it. Are we doing it remote next week too?
Yes, remote.
I'll come as soon as I can if you do it at 6:30.
It's up to y'all if we want to do it 6:30.
I'll make
I
a
mean,
motion.
That's a
the
difficult
deliver-
time for me, but I'm a non-voting member on it anyway, so that's.
If Mr. Baker Jr. is okay with this, then Mr. Baker, you want to make that motion for 6:30?
I'll make a motion to continue the deliberation and for Shingle Mills until September 19th at 6:30.
Do we have to say that we're gonna end at 7:30 to go into the regular scheduled? We have to say that? And then pick it up at the end? No, we don't? Okay. All right, so I got a motion. Mr. Tansey, you want to second that?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Roll call, Mr. Tansey.
Yes.
Self is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes,
There you go. All right, so
Just a quick question. What if I have to change the Zoom link? Because I think I'm gonna have to get a new Zoom link.
Put it on the agenda.
Okay, so, okay.
put it as an amendment to the agenda.
Okay,
all good?
yep,
Yep.
we're good. I'm good.
Pat,
Deb,
you-
I'll be in touch. I'll be in touch with you about decisions and things like that. All right.
Okay,
I
okay,
sent you over some information on hearing dates and things like that too.
correct. I have that.
Pat,
okay.
you gonna be available next week?
Yes, I am.
All right, if that's the case, then we're all good for right now. So, Mr. Baker, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second, Mr. Tansey?
Yes.
Roll call, Mr. Tansey.
Yes.
Self is a yes, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.